Hello, St. Louis, and welcome to OnSTL.com. Let's punch it.
This is going to be one of those too many questions, not enough time conversations with Paul Wendell, the director of Bedlam Street, with us today. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Paul, let me just jump in here because Ron knows everything about the movie because he saw it.
Not everything, or I wouldn't have all these questions.
But I'm going to have all the questions because I didn't see it. Like, what's the movie about?
Well, no, let's start with this. You know, Paul grew up in Boston, Joy, but he lives here in St. Louis. So the obvious question is, how did that happen?
Why?
Well, it's kind of funny. Sometimes I ask that same question to myself.
Do you ask it 3 times? Like, why?
Well, I grew up in Boston. I went to college in New York State. I got a job in New York City. I was a business major in college.
Yeah.
And I was a stockbroker after college.
Oh, that probably was enough reason there to get into the movie business.
Right. I know it's like a perfect transition for me there. What happened was I was in a training class, and they sort of dispersed us throughout the country, and I got St. Louis. It's kind of how it happened.
Oh, so you came here with a job.
He drew the short straw, basically.
And then you stayed.
But how do you get from that to this amazing film that you created here, which you wrote, you directed, you're one of the producers?
I will say this, because Ron saw it and I didn't, and Ron came to me and said, this movie is so well done that you don't notice how all the plot keeps intertwining with itself.
One of us will explain that in a second, but you were also location director and casting director in this movie. I've never seen anyone with so much creative control of a film that came out this well before.
Well, that's sort of one of the benefits, I guess, to independent filmmaking is the creative control. You know, the downside is you don't have the money, you don't have famous people. It's sort of all on your shoulders. But
I don't know. I think that worked in your favor in this case.
Yeah, and he also thought that it looked like New York or something, and here it was shot in St. Louis.
Yeah,
which
I'm trying to guess. That's got to be Baltimore.
He's like, he did it so well. He never showed the arch, so you didn't know where it was.
You never knew where you were.
Well, that was on purpose. I didn't want to define. I wanted it to be a story that could take place anywhere. So I never said St. Louis.
Yeah. St. Louis has great locations for so many. Don't you drive around and go, wow, this is great?
Yeah, and I think people from St. Louis would recognize, because I shot primarily in South City for the exteriors. You see the red brick on the exteriors of the buildings and stuff.
Yeah. How does a stockbroker become such a good writer?
When I was a kid, I used to write stories all the time, creative stories. I used to write film scripts, actually.
Yeah, but here you took what you could easily say are very cliched characters. A cop, a
prostitute,
hooker, a couple hookers, a guy who's 19 years old and his girlfriend is pregnant, and he's just trying to stay out of trouble. An Indian family, Muslims running the local quick shop. Yet you dared to just dive into them and tell us a lot about them, a lot more than you normally get in a movie like that. We learned a lot about these people, and in that we learned how they think. How did you know that? You were a stockbroker. You grew up in Boston.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think all those characters somehow. Sometimes you look and you say, "Well, where did that come from?"
Yeah.
One thing I really do like is when you hear different perspectives. Just like I hear people react differently to the movie, what they took away from it. It might be different than what my intention was.
Yeah.
I like exploring. I like seeing different sides of it. So I wanted to, what's this character doing, and what's this character thinking, or what is this person going through? And then, because I think, one of the things that I believe is that we're all sort of connected in a way.
We
I sort of like that idea. And
you had all these characters really pondering the existence of God in this movie, and there were a couple of recurring themes to me in there. That and not in a religious way or a heavy way, but in an important way that all of us do. Why are we here?
Right.
What is the meaning of all of this? As well as the innocence of children placed in the middle of all this, which gave it a whole different perspective. Now, was that intentional on your part, the children thing?
Well, definitely. I mean, and throughout all the stories, children and family is prevalent. I mean, obviously you have the character of Gabe and his girlfriend. They're expecting a child.
Right.
And then...
that opening scene was...
The opening scene is... the opening scene is... he sits down and he sees a little girl across the street, and he's sort of staring into his future because his girlfriend obviously wants them to move out of that area to have a safer life. And, there's the whole kidnapping sort of subplot to what's going on. But I mean, so there's that story. There's the cop who's dealing with his mother and his son, and then you got the prostitute that she had her son taken away because of her lifestyle, and then obviously the family at the end.
Now here's a fascinating twist in this whole thing. The Indian family you used is a doctor from BJC, his wife and their child.
Right.
You cast them. How did you find them?
That was really a struggle. That was the hardest thing to cast because I had this. I wrote this family, and they had to speak this foreign language, which I didn't speak, or whatever. It had to be some sort of Middle Eastern language, is what I sort of concluded. And then they also had to speak English as well, and they had to look like a real family and be a real family on camera. And so Dr. Vinay Kamat, Dr. Sona Kamat, the two main actors, they brought their son in to audition, and I thought he did really good and all that, but I was having problems casting his parents, and they weren't actors, but I came to them and said, what do you think about playing those roles?
Yeah,
Joy,
that's
you gotta
even
see
better.
This. He got this doctor to get up and dance and sing in this movie.
Yeah, I gotta see it. And that's
directing
my next,
them must have been a real
That's the biggest
challenge.
question. Where can we see it? What?
Well, it's actually being released hopefully later this year, video on demand. We're working with a company that's going after Amazon and Hulu and iTunes. And
Well, is this the plight of the independent filmmaker? Are you also at the same time trying to get distribution? Or are you not even going that route?
Oh no, well, I'm working with Pirate Media, run by Gail Gallagher and Wyatt Weed. They're filmmakers in their own right. They're based out of St. Charles, and they're doing the distribution for this.
Okay.
Good. Thank you for coming in, and we're going to watch for it. And today's segment is presented through the generosity of the Garden Gate Tea Room in Granite City. They serve delicious signature soup, salads, wraps, and sandwiches, desserts, Tuesday through Saturday, and dinner on Thursday and Friday. For more information, visit gardengatetearoom.net. And
can I also just lastly say on Facebook, you can go to the Bedlam Street movie.
Okay.
Like us on Facebook.
Good.
On Facebook.
Great. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.